My name is Eric Nolan, and for almost 3 years I worked the overnight shift at a 24-hour gas station just outside of Cleveland. The place sat right off the interstate near a dead shopping plaza and an abandoned motel. During the day it was busy enough, but after midnight it became a different world entirely. Truckers, drunks, tweakers, lonely people buying cigarettes at 3 a.m. while avoiding eye contact. The shift ran from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. Most nights were boring. That changed in February. It started with the phone calls. The store phone rang around 1:17 a.m. on a Tuesday. I answered with the usual greeting, expecting someone asking if we sold vape pods or if the car wash was open. Instead, all I heard was breathing. Not heavy breathing, just slow, calm breathing. I waited a few seconds. Hello? Nothing. Then a man's voice quietly said, "Are you alone tonight, Eric?" The second he said my name, my stomach tightened. I looked around the empty store instinctively. Who is this? No response. Then the line disconnected. I checked the caller ID. Unknown number. I told myself it was probably some teenager messing around. But 2 nights later, the phone rang again. 1:17 a.m. exactly. This time I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. "Gas and go, this is Eric." Silence. Then, "You look tired tonight." I froze, because 10 minutes earlier I had been outside taking trash bags to the dumpster behind the building. No customers were there. At least, none that I saw. Who the hell is this? A soft chuckle came through the speaker. Then, "Check pump 6. Click. The line died. I immediately looked out the front windows. Pump 6 was empty, but the nozzle was hanging off the side of the pump, swaying slightly in the wind. I know for a fact it hadn't been like that earlier. At that point, I called my manager. He laughed it off. "You work nights, dude. Weird people happen." Maybe he was right. But after that, I started noticing things. Little things. The trash dumpster lid being open after I closed it. Footprints behind the building. Someone tapping on the side windows after 2 a.m. Always when I couldn't see anyone outside. Then one Friday night, things escalated. A man walked into the station around 3:30 a.m. Tall, thin, gray hoodie, face partially hidden by a beanie. He wandered the aisles slowly without buying anything. I watched him through the convex mirror near the register. Something about him felt wrong. He eventually approached the counter carrying a bottle of water. When he handed me cash, I noticed his fingernails were black with dirt, like he'd been digging. Then he smiled slightly and said, "You answer the phone very politely." Every muscle in my body locked up. I stared at him. "What?" But he just grabbed the water and walked out. I immediately went to the windows. Instead of leaving, though, he stood beside pump 6 staring directly at the building. Not moving, just standing there. The parking lot lights reflected off the wet pavement around him. I grabbed the cordless phone and pretended to call police. The second I lifted it, he slowly turned and walked away into the darkness beyond the pumps. Not toward a car, toward the woods behind the abandoned motel. I didn't sleep after that shift. The next few nights were quiet. No calls, no strange customers. I started relaxing again. Then came the knocking. It happened at exactly 2:11 a.m. during a snowstorm. 3 knocks on the glass. I looked up from the register. Nobody there. I walked cautiously toward the front doors. Nothing outside except blowing snow. Then, bang! 3 more knocks. This time from the side employee entrance. The one customers aren't supposed to use. I felt genuine fear hit me for the first time. I locked the front doors remotely and grabbed the baseball bat we kept under the counter. The side hallway was dark except for the emergency light above the exit. I slowly approached. Another knock. Soft this time. "Top, top, top." Then a voice through the door. "Eric!" My blood ran cold, because it wasn't loud. It sounded close, like his face was pressed against the glass. "You forgot to lock your car." I sprinted back to the register and checked the security monitor facing the parking lot. My car door was open, wide open. I know I locked it. The police arrived 20 minutes later and searched the property. Nothing. No footprints near the side door despite the snow. No sign of anyone near my car. But inside the back seat, officers found something. Polaroid photo. It showed me taking out the trash behind the station earlier that week. Someone had been watching me. The officer asked if I had enemies. I honestly didn't. I was 25 years old, broke, single, and working nights at a gas station. Not exactly a high-profile target. After that, I became paranoid. I started checking over my shoulder constantly. Every customer felt suspicious. Then came the final night. I almost quit before it happened. I wish I had. It was around 4 a.m. during my last hour before sunrise. The station was empty. No cars. No customers. The snowstorm had returned, hitting the windows hard enough to rattle them. Then every light in the building flickered once, twice. Then the entire store went dark. Complete darkness. The emergency backup lights kicked on after maybe 5 seconds, bathing the store in dim red light. I immediately checked the cameras. Most were offline, except one. Camera 4. The rear storage hallway. And standing at the end of the hallway was the man in the gray hoodie, completely motionless, just staring into the camera. I grabbed my phone to call 911. No signal. The store landline was dead too. Then I heard footsteps inside the store, slow, deliberate, coming from the back hallway. I backed away from the counter, holding the bat so tightly my hands hurt. The footsteps stopped. Then came his voice, not loud, barely above a whisper. "You should have answered the last call." Then silence. I don't know how long I stood there. Maybe 30 seconds, maybe 5 minutes. But eventually I forced myself to move. I ran out the front entrance into the snow and sprinted across the parking lot toward the highway. I didn't stop running until I reached a truck stop almost half a mile away. Police searched the station again. Nobody was found. No signs of forced entry. No footprints inside. Nothing stolen. But one thing still bothers me. The security footage from camera 4 had somehow been erased. All except a single frame. One frozen image. The man standing in the hallway, smiling. And behind him, barely visible in the darkness, was someone else. In 2021, I took a job doing overnight maintenance at a storage facility outside Phoenix. The place was huge. Rows and rows of metal storage buildings surrounded by chain-link fencing and desert emptiness. My shift started at midnight and ended at 8 a.m. Most nights I worked alone. The job itself was easy. Lock checks, minor repairs, monitoring gate activity. The facility had over 600 storage units. At night, it became unbelievably quiet. Too quiet. Around my second month working there, tenants started complaining about noises, specifically in Section D. People reported hearing banging sounds from inside neighboring units late at night, even though the facility was supposed to be empty after 10 p.m. Management assumed homeless people were sneaking in somehow, so they had me start doing extra patrols around Section D after midnight. That's when I noticed Unit D14. Every single night, its motion sensor light would activate. But according to records, the unit was empty. The tenant stopped paying months earlier. Management had supposedly cleared it out already. Still, around 2 o'clock or 3 a.m., the light outside D14 kept turning on. The first time I checked it, I found nothing. The second time, I heard movement inside. A scraping sound, like furniture dragging across concrete. I radioed my supervisor. He told me not to open the unit alone, so I didn't. The next morning, management inspected it. Empty. Completely empty. No signs anyone had been inside. They even changed the lock. That should have been the end of it. But the very next night, the light came on again. This time I saw the unit door slightly open. Maybe 2 inches. I stopped about 20 feet away. My flashlight beam hit the metal door. The gap slowly closed. Not slammed. Not pulled quickly. Just gently eased shut from the inside. I immediately backed away. "Facility security," I yelled. "Open the unit now." No response. I called police. By the time officers arrived, the unit was locked again. No one inside. One officer actually got annoyed with me. "You sure you're not hearing animals?" I knew what I heard. After that night, I became obsessed with D14. I started checking the cameras specifically around that section. Most nights showed nothing. Then one Thursday around 3:12 a.m., camera D4 captured something strange. A figure walking between the storage rows. Tall, thin, moving oddly, almost limping. The person stopped outside D14 and simply stood there for nearly 4 minutes. Then the footage glitched. Static. When the image returned, the figure was gone and the unit door was open. I showed management. They finally took things seriously. The next night, my supervisor, Frank, stayed on site with me. At around 2:40 a.m., we both saw the motion light switch on. Frank grabbed a flashlight. We walked toward Section D together. The desert wind was howling through the rows of units, making this eerie whistling sound. When we reached D14, the door was open again. About halfway this time, Frank muttered, "Someone's definitely messing around in there." He stepped forward and shined his light inside. The unit looked empty at first. Concrete floor.
Bare walls.
Then the beam caught something in the back corner. A chair. Just one folding chair facing the wall. Frank slowly entered the unit. I stayed near the entrance. "Hello?" he called out. Nothing. Then, bang! The unit door slammed shut behind us. Pitch darkness. I swear my heart stopped. Frank cursed and rushed toward the door. It wouldn't budge. Something was holding it from outside. We both shoved against it. Nothing. Then we heard breathing. Inside the unit. Not ours. Someone else's. Close. Very close. Frank swept his flashlight around wildly. The beam landed on the back corner again. The chair was gone. I know how insane that sounds, but it was gone. Then came a voice from somewhere in the darkness. A raspy whisper. "You left me here." I nearly lost my mind. Frank started pounding on the metal door, yelling for help. The breathing got louder, circling us. We couldn't see anyone. Then my flashlight illuminated something scratched into the interior wall. Names. Dozens of names. Carved deep into the metal. Some crossed out violently. One looked fresh, still shiny, and at the bottom, Frank, freshly carved, right in front of us. That was enough. We rammed the door together as hard as we could. Suddenly it swung open and both of us stumbled out into the dirt. The motion light above us flickered violently. We turned back toward the unit. Empty.
No chair.
No person. Nothing. Frank immediately called police. They searched every unit in Section D. No signs of intruders. But officers did notice something strange. The inside wall of D14 really did contain dozens of carved names. Very old names. Some dating back years. Management later checked records tied to the unit. Apparently, years earlier, a maintenance worker named Daniel Cross disappeared while working overnight at the facility. The last place he was reportedly seen?
Section D.
Unit D14. After that night, Frank quit. 2 weeks later, I quit too. But before I left for good, I made one final mistake. I checked the camera footage from the night we got trapped. At exactly the moment the door slammed shut, the footage caught someone standing behind us, a tall man in dirty coveralls, watching silently from the darkness between the storage rows. The timestamp showed he remained there the entire time, completely motionless. The problem is, neither Frank nor I ever saw him. My name is Caleb Morris, and 3 years ago I worked nights delivering food for DoorDash around Portland. At the time, I was 23, broke, recently out of community college, and trying to save enough money to move out of my mom's apartment. I mostly worked evenings into early mornings because the tips were better and traffic was lighter. Most late-night deliveries were pretty normal. College kids ordering tacos, drunk couples wanting milkshakes, gamers ordering enough fast food to feed a family of 6. But after midnight, the city changed. The roads emptied out. The neighborhoods got quieter. And sometimes you'd end up delivering to places that didn't feel right. This happened in November. It was raining hard that night, one of those freezing Oregon rains that soaks through your clothes instantly. I'd already been driving for almost 7 hours and was about to head home when one last order popped up on my phone. The payout was huge, way too huge. $47 for a single delivery. The pickup location was a 24-hour diner downtown, and the drop-off point was nearly 35 minutes outside the city near a wooded area I didn't recognize. Normally, I would have declined it immediately, but I needed the money, so I accepted. The diner was almost empty when I arrived. An exhausted-looking waitress handed me 2 large bags without saying much. But before I left, the cook leaned his head out from the kitchen window and asked, "You actually taking that order?" I laughed a little. "Yeah." The cook and waitress exchanged a look. Then the waitress quietly said, "People keep placing orders for that address and nobody answers the door." That made me pause. "What do you mean?" She shrugged nervously. "Drivers say the house is weird. One guy said he heard someone crying inside." I almost canceled right there. But again, $47. So I drove. The further I got from the city, the worse the weather became. Streetlights disappeared. The roads narrowed. Eventually my GPS led me onto a long forest road surrounded by massive pine trees. No houses, no businesses, nothing. Rain hammered against the windshield while my headlights barely cut through the darkness. Then my GPS said, "Your destination is ahead." I slowed down. On the right side of the road sat an old 2-story house partially hidden behind trees. No lights on, no visible cars. It looked abandoned. I checked the app again to make sure I had the correct address. I did. That's when my phone buzzed. A message from the customer. "Leave food at basement door." I stared at the screen.
Basement door.
I looked back at the house. From the road, I could barely make out a narrow gravel driveway leading around the side of the property into darkness. Every instinct told me not to go down there, but the app required a photo confirmation for drop-offs. So I grabbed the bags and walked toward the house. The rain had turned the gravel path muddy and slippery. As I rounded the side of the building, my flashlight illuminated concrete stairs descending underground. At the bottom sat a metal basement door, slightly open. I stopped immediately. The darkness beyond the doorway looked almost solid. Then I heard something, breathing, very faint, coming from inside. I stood frozen in the rain for several seconds trying to decide what to do. Finally, I called out, "DoorDash delivery." No response, just silence. Then, creak. The basement door slowly opened wider on its own. I backed up instinctively. Every horror movie instinct in my body screamed at me to leave. But before I could move, a man's voice drifted up from the darkness. Soft, weak. "Please, bring it downstairs." "Absolutely not." I set the bags down immediately. "Sorry, man, company policy. I can't enter the house." No response. Then the voice came again, more desperate this time. "Please." Something about it felt wrong. Not scared wrong. Rehearsed wrong. Like someone pretending to sound weak. I took the photo quickly and started backing away. Then I heard footsteps inside the basement. Fast footsteps. Running upward. I turned and sprinted. I nearly slipped climbing back up the muddy path. Behind me, the basement door slammed open violently. I heard someone emerge into the rain. I didn't look back. I reached my car, locked the doors, and immediately pulled away. As my headlights swept across the property, I finally saw movement near the side of the house. A tall figure standing beside the basement entrance, watching me leave. I reported the delivery complete and drove home shaking. I told myself I was overreacting. Maybe it was just some creepy guy. Maybe he really needed help carrying the food downstairs. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something terrible almost happened. The next morning, I checked the app. The order had disappeared completely. No tip, no record of the address, nothing. I contacted support thinking maybe the app glitched. The support agent sounded confused. They told me no delivery had ever been assigned to that address. I argued with them for almost 10 minutes before giving up. At that point, I genuinely considered quitting. But bills are bills. So 2 nights later, I was back driving again. Around 1 a.m., I got another order. Same diner, same payout, $47. The second I saw the drop-off location, my stomach dropped. Same address. I declined it immediately. 30 seconds later, it came back. Higher payout this time, $61. Declined again. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. A man whispered, "You forgot the drinks." Click. I nearly drove off the road. I turned my phone completely off after that and went home early. The next several days were quiet. No strange orders. No calls. I started convincing myself it was just an elaborate prank. Then my car got broken into. Nothing valuable was taken. Not my charger. Not the dashcam. Not even the emergency cash in the glove compartment. But someone left something behind. A single fast food cup sitting in the driver's seat. Still full. Rainwater diluted the soda inside. Written on the side in black marker were the words, "Last chance." At that point, I finally went to police. I explained everything. The deliveries, the calls, the house, the cup. The officer listening looked skeptical but agreed to check the address. 2 days later, they contacted me again. The house existed, but according to county records, it had been abandoned for almost 8 years after a fire killed the owner. No basement entrance was listed on the property blueprint. That detail made my skin crawl, because I know what I saw. The officer advised me not to return and told me to report further contact. I tried moving on. For about a week, nothing happened. Then came the final night. I was finishing a delivery downtown around 2:30 a.m. when I noticed headlights behind me. At first I ignored them, but after several turns, the vehicle stayed behind me. A black SUV. No license plate on the front. I tested it by making random turns. Followed every single one. Panic started building in my chest. I sped up. So did the SUV. I called 911 while driving. The dispatcher told me to head toward the nearest police station. The SUV remained behind me the entire time, sometimes close enough that I couldn't see its headlights anymore. Then suddenly, it rammed my car, hard. My steering wheel jerked violently. I almost lost control. The dispatcher was yelling through the phone while I accelerated through a red light. The SUV hit me again. This time I saw the driver briefly through my mirror. A pale man with long dark hair, smiling, I flew into the police station parking lot going nearly 70. The SUV stopped at the entrance. For a second, it just sat there idling. Then it slowly backed away and disappeared into the night. Police searched the area but never found it. My rear bumper was destroyed. There were black paint marks all over my trunk. But that wasn't the worst part. One officer reviewing nearby traffic cameras noticed something strange. According to footage, there was never anyone driving the SUV. At least not visibly. The windshield looked completely empty. No driver.
No passenger.
Nothing. I quit delivery driving after that night. A month later, though, curiosity got the better of me. I searched online for news involving the abandoned house. I wish I hadn't. Back in 2014, police discovered evidence of multiple kidnappings connected to the property after the owner died in the fire. Several victims were allegedly held in hidden underground rooms beneath the house. Most were never found, but one detail still keeps me awake sometimes. According to the article, surviving victims claimed the kidnapper used to lure people in by pretending to need deliveries late at night. And whenever someone tried escaping, he would chase their car in a black SUV.